Welcome to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast with Lawrence Manaig, where we explore the ketogenic lifestyle and how it can improve your physical and mental health. Each week, we bring you valuable insights and advice from experts to help you on your journey to a healthier lifestyle. This episode is brought to you by BasicKetogenicLifestyle.com, where Lawrence coaches individuals with depression to reverse their symptoms and achieve a healthier, happier life using an evidence-based approach. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive deep into the world of ketones and coffee. Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast today and never miss an episode.
I'm so excited for this, guys. Stick around because our guest today is Vernon Masongsong, a metabolic health coach practitioner and a certified nutrition network coach. He's also the visionary founder of Transparent Health and Fitness, an organization that's making waves in the world of holistic wellness. Vernon's approach to health and wellness is nothing short of revolutionary. He's a firm believer in the power of the holistic ketogenic lifestyle, and he's dedicated to helping individuals reclaim their metabolic health and even reverse conditions like type 2 diabetes. Vernon has been transforming lives by guiding people towards a healthier, more vibrant version of themselves. Vernon, welcome to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast, man.
Lorenz, how you doing? Thank you for inviting me out here. That was a well intro. Thank you.
Thanks, Vernon, man. Thank you for coming on. And the reason why I ask you is you have such a good story that I think will resonate with a lot of my listeners. And it's not always easy to share stories, right? And with the public, and it's certainly, for me, it took me a while to share my story. And a lot of times we think that people might judge, but when your mission finds you, you will find a way to get around our own limitations, and we overcome it. And so that's why I love having you on, and you have been helping a lot of people. And Vernon, you got that determination, man. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. So we'll start here, and it takes a lot from us. It takes courage to come on here today and share our story. And I want to ask, what has sparked that health journey for you in the beginning?
In the beginning, it's always been my own personal health journey. I've always been active, exercise, try to be up to date on latest supplementations, but you can't stop metabolic syndrome once it gets going. Yeah. Particularly insulin resistance, which I was ignorant of because we all didn't have the right education with nutrition. We were told a certain thing. We've been programmed to believe a certain way of life, meaning the carbs, we need them, the low fat lifestyle, which turns out to be a huge failure because it doesn't work with our physiology. But I didn't know this, and so my story also includes alcoholism. I started working nights, and I'd use alcohol as a nightcap. I would use it as a sleep aid. But over the years, even that got progressively worse to where I would say, out of control in a way. And it takes hitting rock bottom to finally make a change, and I finally did. I put that part of my life behind, and I found the paleo way of life, cutting out all processed foods. And I think at my worst, I'm 5'8", and at my worst, I was 215 pounds, right? So anyway, I found the paleo way, and I lost a ton of weight, probably 40 pounds, when I thought that was the answer. Yeah. And then I had a gluten-free period, thinking I could drink some wine, and that didn't work. Yeah. So I'm always constantly trying to experiment on things. And anyway, the magic moment turned out to be Saladino's podcast with Rogan. Okay. When he was promoting the carnivore lifestyle. So I read his book and decided to go on that journey. And once I started the carnivore way of life, that was it, man. I thought I could never have a six-pack. I thought it was genetically impossible for me because of all the years of doing this and that. And boy, was I wrong. Once you become carnivore, which is ketogenic lifestyle, you're not eating any carbs, then your body starts to uncover what's been hidden underneath all these years.
Yes, sir.
And once I got that equation correctly, boy, I first did it on myself, healed myself, and then that's when I brought my parents along for the next step of the journey.
We'll talk about that in a second, man. That's a great story in itself. But man, your honesty is very refreshing. You opened up with alcoholism, but you did say that you were always inclined with looking for better ways to be healthy in the beginning, and then you said you hit rock bottom. What does that rock bottom look like for you?
Rock bottom is being severely dehydrated and going through withdrawals because I quit drinking, and I never felt that in my life, to where your body was actively searching for that substance. And I've never experienced that in my life, and I never will again because I never went back. But that was my rock bottom personally, having to go to the emergency room and get an IV because I was so severely dehydrated. That was my rock bottom, and that's how I made my way out.
So you're like, when you were getting hospitalized, is it the time when you realized that, hey, this is getting out of hand? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that I would say before that I was getting out of hand, but taking it to that level, man, it's scary. It's scary, man. I have a family that I have to support, and I got to think about all that. I got to be the man, and at that point I was not the man, so I had to become the man.
Yeah, so the reason why I asked that is because most of us, for me especially, it takes that rock bottom that we're talking about, and sometimes we have to hit that breaking point of our life before we can really realize that, hey, look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, this is not going anywhere. And for me, it was the same thing. I mean, I had a major depression, and fears taking over my life at some point. And my girlfriend at the time, she broke down, and she was a strong person. She broke down. Hey, it never happened to her before, and I'm like, I might lose her. So that was my breaking point, because she was so strong for me, and I was in the verge of losing that, right? And so, I mean, that was my rock bottom. I'm like, hey, I need to do something. I need to start with the point that I realized that nobody's coming to save me. That's when I realized, hey, I gotta save me. Nobody's coming. That's why I asked that. For some of us, it has to take that rock bottom before we had to realize, but which is blessing in disguise for us. For me, I would always tell my wife, hey, if I had to go through that again, I would, because it taught me a lot. So I want to talk to you about that transformation, man. You said 215 and then up to achieving abs at 40 years old, man. It's remarkable, brother. You said when everything was going on and seeing these wild results, energy, abs, things you thought was impossible. At what point did you decide to, hey, I have to go back to school, get my certification, and become a health coach? Where's that determination coming from, you think?
This whole thing sparked like this new journey where I just been following. So I just soak up all this new science, and I finally found something. Finally, in my whole life, I found something that works. And so I just got addicted to wanting to know more and more knowledge about it. So obviously I what I did was search, because I don't want to keep this to myself. I want to help others. So was my ambition. And so I looked online and trying to find, okay, where can I find an avenue of learning to where I can learn and make something of this. And I ended up stumbling upon it. My school is called the Nutrition Network, and founded by Tim Noakes and the Noakes Foundation, Prof. Noakes. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people from that school. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yes, I found that online and found that they had courses, and the first one being a health advisor course for non-medical professionals. And I decided to take that course. So that was my first step on the journey to becoming a coach. I completed that, and then I really felt that gave me the tools and the trust, especially with my parents, to be able to say, okay, I have a base knowledge of the science and coaching, and I can help others. So that's where it began. And then that actually turned into even more. With this happened all during COVID, so there's still all these restrictions, and there's an event every year in San Diego. At the time it was called Low Carb USA. Now it's the Symposium for Metabolic Health. And the Nutrition Network reached out to me or to represent them in San Diego that year. And then that was invaluable, what I gained from that. I mean, I felt like I was out of my league, because at that time I was just an advisor, and the science that was being spoken I didn't really understand too well. But I got a lot of information and connections there, and connected with the low carb community, which I didn't even know existed. So there they have the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, and you can become a metabolic health practitioner and get accredited. So I found that pathway through Nutrition Network and the society, and that was my next step, and that requires even more classes and more knowledge. So yeah, that was the next step of my journey, becoming a metabolic health practitioner. And then I became certified, where I went through an intensive 4-month training, and I actually got to be trained personally by Prof. Noakes, it was such an honor.
Wow.
Yeah. So now this last conference I just came back from, now I get it. I understand all the science mumbo jumbo, but I can teach this to others, and I'm
confidently.
Continuously being up to date on the current science. So yeah, those are my big step in my journey.
Man, it started with your own health and took you down this path that you never know existed, like you said, and and now you're helping a lot of people, really challenging them in their beliefs and giving them all this information, bits of information that they can understand, right? Man, many people also, because you're also you're a trainer too, I believe, right?
No, I haven't been trained as licensed as a trainer. I just have that as part of my holistic package, because you need to have exercise, and I am knowledgeable in exercise.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask is, in your journey, because some people have limiting beliefs about weight loss, because some people believe that exercise alone is enough, right, to impact our health. And for you, when did you realize the impact of your diet to your health, particularly when you transitioned to an animal-based low-carb lifestyle? What did you realize about the diet part of things? You said we need exercise, but how big is the diet part of it, of your lifestyle?
I would like to say something like 90% is the food, but it's hard to say that, because having muscle is such an important thing for longevity that,
Exactly.
you know, and for the brain power. It's just for our metabolic system, it's so required. But that being said, that was me being ignorant to the science, how human physiology works. You can do the cardio, you can do it all, but eventually insulin resistance is going to get you if you're eating that whole adage of, yeah, I can eat whatever I want. But
You were talking about when you were younger.
yeah, that only lasts for so long.
Right.
The insulin stops working the same way that it used to. You keep beating it down with carbohydrates, you keep beating it down, eventually it starts to break, and then that's when you get that nice pregnant carb belly starts to form around your waist.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the sadness that we're in our society today, is that I think I posted on LinkedIn, they're making mannequins with these carb
I saw
bellies preformed. Like, is this thing normal? Like, you're trying to normalize the actual sign of sickness? People are walking around in a chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
You know, but they're trying to make it out like it's something normal, so we must scream at the top of our lungs. No, this is not normal. We can help you, but this is not normal.
Yeah. It's common. It's so common. You know what? Last week I was just in Vegas, and I'm from Canada, right? I'm not saying Canadian people are healthier than Americans, but it certainly looked like that when I went there. I mean, there's a lot of people who are obese, right? Especially in Vegas, where it's food, gambling, buffets here at every corner. I mean, you could see the difference between like people over there and people over here. I don't see that much obese people here, to be honest with you. Like, my wife and I went there, and she pointed out, hey, a lot of people are really sick here. And you could really tell by just looking at somebody, right, that they have insulin resistance. You could tell, right?
Yeah.
It's the biggest concern. Like, insulin resistance and chronic inflammation are the two biggest concerns, right, of our society today. And when I got rid of my inflammation, I noticed I was losing weight, right? But my energy, my mood is lifting. Again, like I said, my depression went away. How about you? What were some of these specific changes that you noticed when you started the diet, you started the lifestyle, the animal-based keto lifestyle? What was the first thing that you noticed for you?
The greatest thing is, the hunger goes away. You're satiated because you're eating fat and protein, and that's what they do. You add carbs in the mix, and it switches on that evolutionary signal that says we need to store fat. When you want to store fat for the winter, like bears, when we have times of food scarcity. But in our society, we have access to unlimited amounts of carbohydrates, and that's a very dangerous thing that our human physiology has not caught up with yet. So that's why we are where we are. And I personally, the biggest thing is I can eat a big meal and I'm good. And the energy is consistent because we're not going on the carb roller coaster up and down, refill and repeat, where we're just rolling on fat all day long, like a smooth train that just keeps rolling on, and that feeling is great, man. I don't crash. It's amazing that now I'm 41, gonna be 42, I'm way better than I was when I was in my 30s.
When you said you cracked down on the diet piece, from 30 years old to when you compare when you're 30 to now, for the people, what does an animal-based diet look like right now for you? What do you usually eat? What do you generally eat in a day?
Animal based is general, so it's just mostly animal proteins with vegetables or dairy sparingly. But I'll just tell you my personal N of 1, what I eat on a normal day.
If somebody wants abs.
well, even that, you got to put it into context of where they're at. So
Right.
I might not have damaged my insulin is better than maybe others, that I didn't push it to the diabetes level yet. But so I wake up, I like to do yoga and qigong exercises first to burn off the excess sugar and cortisol in the morning when I wake up. And then a couple hours later, I'll have my supplemental coffee with butter and collagen, colostrum,
Okay.
branched chain aminos, 1 egg. Now I've added taurine, HMB. So it's a really big cocktail that I make, and it's just a dash of steamed whole milk with coffee, and then I put it in a blender. So that's what I'll have to sustain me. And then later on, during my meal, it'll be around roughly at least a pound and a half of a protein source, either red meat or pork. Pork belly is my favorite.
Okay.
Ribeye-
So
ribeye
eating
belly.
pork belly doesn't make you fat, just for the people.
Oh, eating thick slices
Gets you abs.
gets you abs. I think you'll get a trip on one of my dessert snacks is Daisy's. There's a Daisy cottage cheese, so it's 1 pound of cottage cheese, and then I'll put a bunch of pork rinds in there, regular pork rinds, and then I'll mix it with like a couple tablespoons of strawberry whipped cream cheese, all mixed up. So that's another part of my daily routine.
Okay.
So,
Sounds
getting
delicious.
tons of protein, tons of fat,
Yeah.
very minimal on the carbohydrate.
So for somebody like myself, I'm 32 years old. I eat generally keto diet, right? Low carb, almost carnivore. But I haven't seen abs yet. What am I doing wrong?
I haven't seen them yet, huh? You can go more fat, more ultra, or do you do a lot of cardio?
Yeah, I do. Maybe I'm eating some processed keto foods sometimes.
Well, yeah, with that,
That's probably
obviously
it,
stay
right?
away, because a lot of that stuff can trigger an insulin response. You can't trust these dirty keto manufacturers, is what I like
Yeah.
to call them. They'll have them pesky seed oils in there,
Right.
because all they got to do is qualify that, it's low carbohydrate. But
Yeah.
then you look at the details and there's seed oils.
Yeah.
Or then now I have put on the red list for artificial sweeteners erythritol. Are you familiar with the study that came out
Yeah.
earlier this year showing the blood clotting?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
The
Yeah.
potential for blood clot formation, and then it stays elevated in your blood for 3 days, very high, and then slowly peters off. So when you're talking human physiology, it's scary when you see something that is like 1,000 times higher than what it should normally be. And
Yeah.
me personally, I was eating some keto ice creams like that 4 times a week, and so then it even scares me even more, because the people that we're trying to heal, they have diabetes or obesity, and do you want to give those people higher blood clot formations? That sounds really risky to take that chance of potential risk of heart attack. So that's now been on my red list, and erythritol is the cheapest one, I think, because it's in all those dirty keto foods. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And they even put it in blends like
Right.
monk fruit with erythritol blends. You need to get, if you're going to go the artificial sweetener route, you go with the extracts without any other fillers, because they play tricks like that too. You know, we can't trust these people.
So what's your rule of thumb? Let's say, what are the misconceptions of people about keto? Like when they're starting keto and they're not losing weight, what do you think is going on there? Do you audit their lifestyle? What do you do? What do you usually see?
They usually always lose weight as long as they're not lying about what they're consuming.
Right.
And it takes the transition. Human beings are impatient. We want to see results right away, and that's just part of coaching. You have to educate them. It took you 10 plus years to put your body in this shape that it's in now. It's not going to happen overnight, but your body has a chance to heal if you allow it to. So
right.
in my practice, I use a device called the Keto Mojo. It's a glucose ketone monitoring unit, and I get to monitor my clients, so it keeps them disciplined, and then they can't lie to me about what they're consuming, so that keeps them disciplined, and that's a very good tool to use, because who doesn't want to have a higher score and beat their score from yesterday?
Right.
You know? Nobody wants
right.
to lose.
Right.
So it's a very, very useful tool there. But, you know, with ones that are struggling, they have to go most likely in a higher fasting zone because their insulin is probably really, really high. So that's the key to the equation. You got to get that insulin as low as possible, because that's what's holding you back from using the fat.
So that's the monitors almost like an accountability for them too, like, and also you're seeing the results. And how often do you get them to test the monitor?
In the beginning, I get them to test at least 3 times a day. I want to see where their baseline sugars are at, and then I want to see what it is before their meal, and then how it changes after their meal, and then maybe one more time before they sleep. But so you can create a picture of a daily picture of, okay, this is how my body is operating. And then the other great useful thing with that is you can experiment, see how a banana affects you, or an orange, or so you can test out these carb sources, because everybody affects people differently. Like me with honey, I started to lose the abs, so I had to cut it out. Sadly,
no honey.
That's one thing I stray from Saladino. He's on the fruit and honey thing.
Yeah,
it works for
him. Yeah,
but it doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. No, that's the thing too, right? When he's mostly carnivore, animal based, right? And he eats the organ meats and all of that stuff, which is great. But then he goes honey and fruit, and then he is really firm with his ideology that it's okay for us. But does he, just not to steer away from the conversation, but does he say that it's firm that it's okay for everyone to consume honey? Is that what he's saying?
No, it's a fine line there. That's where I'd like him to tweak his message a little bit, because he does say, like, if you have the issues, you probably shouldn't be consuming it. But he should be more outspoken with, if you have diabetes, if you have obesity or insulin resistance, you should not go down the carbohydrate path.
Right.
And he should be more open and honest with that part, instead of just a little sentence. And then if the layman sees the videos, they believe that. Just like with the
he's walking around with abs.
Or the Liver King.
The Liver King, yeah.
Eat testicles and you can look like me.
Yeah.
They should just be more clear on, if you're metabolically healthy, heck, okay.
Yeah.
Go to town on fruit and honey when you're metabolically healthy. But if you're overweight, you have diabetes, that's not going to reverse diabetes. That's the stuff that caused it.
Yeah,
in the first
it's
place.
it's somewhat saying, hey, it's okay to eat fruit. It's okay to eat honey at any point of your health journey, right? And that's not the message. You have to cut out the carbs and let your body heal first, and then maybe add some things back, right?
Correct.
Mm.
And you may never be able to. Like my mother, she can never go back to eating a ton of fruit again because it spikes her insulin receptors are so damaged that they don't function.
I guess for the layman, you have to really do your own research. I mean, or do your own digging with these people like Vernon. You can reach out to them and ask them about their story and talk about them, and if it resonates with you, if you can test it out and see for yourself, right? But without testing it, you're not gonna know, because there's a lot of information really out here, and if you just believe somebody, right, and do as they say, like Saladino, he walks around with abs, he's gonna be followed by a lot of people. Walks around with abs and talks to the camera, right? Not everybody's going to be helped with his message, because his message is kind of general to the public, right?
I love Salad, man. He's got me started on this journey. I love the man. I look up to him. He spread the message, and it's great. Without his message, but it's a great message. I would just like him to have that little note. Don't do this if you're diabetic, obese, insulin. Just have that message included. That's all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You talked about your parents there. What an incredible story, because to me, you coach both your parents, right? Not only that they lost over 50 pounds each, but they also reverse type 2 diabetes. You must be the GOAT of health coaching ever, man, because I have so many questions about this, man. I want to really learn from you. I mean, if you could get your parents to comply, right, everything else pales in comparison, right? You've done it. Like my dad, he's type 2 diabetic, and he knows that I do this, and he even watches like people like Ken Berry, and since I've started this, he's been watching. He knows, right? He knows it's bad for him to be eating fruits and sugar. And my mom, she's nearly pre-diabetic, and no matter how hard I try, they know it's right. They know, but it's just I'm not alone in this too, because out of over, like I said before we started, out of over 100 plus experts I had on the show, right, who helped thousands of people, I haven't heard any one of them claim that their parents did the lifestyle change. I can attest to this, because a lot of them says, hey, I helped a lot of people, but I couldn't get my parents to change their lifestyle. How in the world did you got them to comply, brother?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was my destiny.
Right on.
It comes from love, man.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts. Is they shown me a life of love, and I felt that, and they trusted me, because it's all about connection.
Yeah.
And that's why I went down the journey of becoming an advisor and a metabolic health practitioner, and learning the actual science. So I have the studies to prove. I have the studies to back it up. This is not just opinion. I was taught to, whenever I make a statement, it has to be backed up by science. So with that knowledge, it gave them even more trust in me. Then they saw we have to be leaders by example, right? The people, they're always watching us when we're at a get together at a family event, when they're out there with their soda and their cakes and their cookies, that I don't partake. I lead by example, and that's an infectious thing. And So they decided to go on that journey with me. And it also comes from maybe, hey, my mom is 76 now. When she started, she was 73.
Wow.
And my father is in his late 60s. And they both been diabetic for many years. And my mother, hypertension for many years. And they were lost. They take the medicine, and they just thought, like everybody else, that we're old, it's genetic.
Right.
My grandpa got it too, my grandma. So that's the message we have to change, is scream it at the top of our lungs. No, somebody might be more sensitive to storing fat than others, but we're not destined to become that way.
Mm-hmm.
We were just taught by our family how to eat the wrong way. Simple as that. We're all going to be diabetic if we eat the standard American or Canadian diet with processed foods and follow their food pyramid. It works for them. It works for their money. It works for their pocketbook. But they want to farm us from birth to death.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. And we got to push back with everything we have. So my parents trusted me, but they were, I would say, their bottoms too, because they weren't getting better and they were lost. And then I found this way, and it's working for me, and they see that it worked for me. And then now I'm speaking the science to them and explaining to them, educating them. You got to go back to the history lesson of why Ansel Keys and all that stuff, the saturated fat nonsense, and why they made cholesterol the enemy. And once you educate, people start to feel like, who likes to feel that they've been swindled. Nobody wants to be swindled.
Yeah.
But
basically,
that's really what the whole world's been swindled on, this food pyramid. And so they, for intensive purposes, saw the light. And that's why I'm pushing this. We need to educate and not medicate. Where our society wants to medicate for every little diagnosis, where it's the root cause. We need to teach people that it's the lifestyle, not medicate for every little thing. And thankfully, people like to try, keto's not the magic diet or whatever. It's not magic, it's just human physiology. It's the way we're supposed to operate.
Yeah.
And if you want to get optimal health, you're going to want to lead a ketogenic lifestyle. And so my parents, they saw the results within weeks, because the inflammation goes down. The foggy brain starts to clear up. They're starting to lose weight for the first time in whoever knows how long. And they had a lot to wait to lose. And so thankfully they're just like me in the standpoint of, you've made it this far, you don't want to ever go back.
Right.
So we're very conscious of what we put in our mouth now, because we don't want to go back in time. It's kind of almost like a fear in a way. You're scared that you'll ignite, because the hidden part of it all is people are addicted, man. They're addicted to their carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are sugar is a narcotic. It stimulates the brain just like cocaine, and it's maybe even worse because you can't stop. Once you start, it makes you want to keep eating more and more. And it's not our fault, because it's a human physiological thing for survival. But who's trying to survive out there snacking on candy and cookies all day? That's not survival. That's just addiction. And we have to be open and honest about that.
Right.
people have gotten diabetes because they've been addicted to carbs for 10, 15, 20 years. It's very hard for the brain to let that go once it's been... If you put it up in comparison with the other drugs, it's another drug that it's hard to let go. And you have withdrawals when you don't have it. So if you can, I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
You know, if you can gently have that kind of conversation and put sugar where it deserves to be as a drug, and talk about it as an addiction, and not put blame on anybody. It's not their fault.
Yeah.
They just listen to the same crap that we've been fed when we were kids. They just followed the guidelines.
It's just funny to me that you really have to go back into history of how cholesterol and red meat was vilified by Ansel Keys and his crew, and you really have to get back to the science and the history of what happened. Without going back, there's no way you're gonna be able to break this down, right? Because their first question is, hey, fat is bad for you, cholesterol, it's been said for 50 plus years, right? And really have to tell them about what happened and why it happened, and why cholesterol and fat and red meat is really, it's the opposite. You need it. It's essential. There's essential fat, there's essential protein, and there's no such thing as essential carbohydrates, right? So, man, your parents are very lucky, my friend. It's a very touchy subject to begin with, and it really says a lot about your relationship with your parents. Like, they gave you the trust, like you said, which says a lot, right? And if I ask my family doctor today about type 2 diabetes, it's automatic. She will say it's a chronic illness, and the patient will have to be on meds for the rest of their life. And that's unlikely to change ever, unless the medical system did a complete 180 and goes back on its head, right? Like, why is that such a problem? What needs to happen in your mind for that to change, do you think?
The Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners are doing their part by educating the current practitioners. If you join, there's a affidavit of support for standard of care for the ketogenic, well, it's called therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. Okay. So we have a minority of practitioners that all agree that this is the standard of care. So they can't just say that this is just some fad thing, to lose weight temporarily. So that's one step. And also let me put this picture out here. Oh, you can't see that. Well, it's called the ketogenic, the science of therapeutic carbohydrate restriction.
We'll link that in the description.
Yeah, it's a textbook that just came out. The Nutrition Network did it, and it's written by the experts and all the experts in the low carb ketogenic community, and edited and backed by all the research papers to back it up. So that's another step in the right direction, that we want to get this textbook in every doctor's office, in the schools, and that's hopefully one of the goals, is to get metabolic health specialist as another specialty, like cardiology or neurologist, so it's recognized as a specialty in the medical system. So that's where it has to go. It has to win by science, and that's why they can't deny us, because we have the science. We're telling the truth. Where they're using epidemiology and funny numbers like relative risk instead of absolute risk to push their medications. We don't play those games that the pharmaceuticals play. So I think it's just my hope it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
The more people that we heal, this is going to hopefully be a revolution that takes place in the whole planet. My buddy Shashi, who graduated with me, he's the first practitioner in India, and they have a huge problem. So when he's going to have his first conference in October, and he's getting some pretty heavy hitters to come out and speak to them, and it's just, we just got to keep every voice needs to be talking about this, because the people, they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
The problem is too, right? The small children. They're feeding small children right now, and small children are getting diagnosed with pre-diabetes at an early age of 9, just because that's what they've been feeding children, breakfast full of sugar, right? And if kids are being diagnosed with pre-diabetes at the age of 9 to 16, man, where is this going? Right? It means that what they're eating is toxic. And if this ever become a standard care, they'll have to label refined sugar, seed oils as toxic, right? And they'll have to clear out the shelves.
I agree. And that,
you know, do you see a word like that? I hope so.
That's a big hope. I see that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I personally want to do, is be part of the change in our public school system, because you're right, man. That's part of the equation, because the food companies were smart with that too. They got their sodas and their snacks in there. They got there's a big push right now to get whole milk. They don't have whole milk in school because they went to the 2% and the non-fat because of the fat thing. And so if we can change that at the school level, they don't get addicted to carbs as an early age, and then they become that's the evil thing about the food companies, right? It's a great business model. They get kids hooked on their products, and then they get lifelong customers out of it. Just by giving donations to schools. It's really sick. But that stuff needs to change, get it out of the school. Yeah, man, I envision that myself. Sugar warning label. Instead of, in Mexico, they like to put a salt warning label on everything, like salt is the bad thing. It's really wild.
It's ridiculous.
They have everything opposite of what will make you healthy.
Yeah. Hey, I tell you, man, whenever I would have a cheat meal, right? Whenever I would decide to punish myself a cheat meal, man, I'm sick afterwards, right? Like, imagine these people eating that every single day, right?
Well, they just don't know.
They just don't know.
The gut, they developed a gut that eats that crap. Your gut becomes what you eat, really. What bacteria what food certain bacterias win. And so they don't get that feeling that we do because they're not healthy. So they're living in states of inflammation. Where we, man, if we stray from the path, our gut bacteria tells us right away, like, what are you doing?
Here's another point too. Obviously, who doesn't want to be fit, right? At the end of the day, who doesn't want to look fit at the end of the day? Nobody wants to look fat, right? Not straight shades, right? But obviously, everybody wants to be healthy. But when you're obese, right, it tells you, and a lot of people are, and 88% of people are metabolically unhealthy. That tells you a lot about addiction, right? Because who doesn't want to be fit and healthy, right? Who chooses to be obese? You get what I'm saying? Like, meaning, this must be there must be something going on up in here, right? That people chooses not to be unhealthy, or it's just that they don't know that's the food that's doing that and making them sick, right? How can you not connect that the food is making you sick? You get what I'm saying?
That's the addiction circuit in the brain, my friend. When you trigger dopamine response, the pleasure response, and you keep pleasuring it all day, there's something called dopamine resistance as well. It doesn't have the same effect, and then the wiring in your brain becomes faulty. The neuroplasticity, the signals start to fade, and you're just, like I said before, it's a drug, narcotic, and you keep going back for more. What's an addiction when you know it's not good for you, but you persist anyway?
Yeah.
And then the pharmaceuticals come in and say, hey, we got a nice drug that'll keep your sugars in control. You don't have to change what you eat. And then that enables them to continue to eat the way they eat.
Yeah.
So then the food companies continue.
That's the word, enable. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then the doctors, man, they enable them too. Because I'm telling them, hey, the ketogenic lifestyle is the way. And they're like, oh, you need to eat low fat. Man, the American Diabetes Association makes me sick, man. They put out a goal that says diabetics want to have less than 7 A1C. That's their goal. So you're telling the population now that your goal is to be diabetic? Like, that doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing as diabetes.
Yeah.
It's how high of insulin resistant are you?
Yeah. My friend, we're in the matrix, brother, and we're out of it. And some people are in the matrix because it's easy. They're easily fooled, my friend. Because if you're telling me that normal is diabetic, then they must be in the matrix. Because there's no way people would believe it.
Even their recipes, man, their carbs and sugar are on their website. Diabetic recipes. You couldn't make this stuff up, man. It's like you said, the Matrix, the Twilight Zone, and people will be like, oh, I can eat that? The American Diabetes Association says it's okay. But they're keeping you sick.
I'm laughing, but it's ridiculous, brother.
And so it's really what it is an enablement. And if you think about it, an addictive person's mind, if the doctor tells you it's not your fault, it's genetics, you're going to need this, or carbs are essential, you have to have carbs, then they're like, okay, my doctor said that, and then they shut you off. And then the biggest thing I've learned
shut you off,
the addiction part of the mind, it has veto power over logic.
Yeah.
How many years was I drinking alcohol, trying to find a way to be healthier drinking alcohol the way I did? It's my addiction mind playing tricks on me, not seeing logic that was right in front of my face, but I didn't want to see it because I wanted my alcohol where they don't want to put down their pasta or their candy or whatever it is. I can't do it. They don't want to be sick, but man, the addiction is so overpowering. Yeah. And we just got to be really empathetic because they just followed what they were taught, and we got to try to help them little step by step. Every step in the right direction is a step. And that's why I'm doing what I do now, because I want to help heal the planet, man. I want to help change the narrative. Change the narrative that they're feeding us this stuff with the children trying to make medications for obese children when all they got to do is put away the carbohydrates. Yeah. It's just wild.
Yeah, man, it's more than wild because it's how much of the addictive mind is talking when somebody's resisting like something so obvious, right? like food. Like, how can you not know or make that connection? At this point, for me, I'm so sensitive to food. I know when something's affecting me the wrong way, right? You have to be so blind to what's going on to continue on, right? Or addicted to something, right? And you said they don't have your best interest. They use this addictive personality that people has to lure you in, right? And keep you there.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's called the umami effect, right?
Umami effect.
The history is the cigarette companies bought the food companies and
right.
built their addiction model, and they make this stuff up in labs and create the perfect protein, carbohydrate, and fat, the perfect combination to keep you coming back for more. It's not, it's in design. This stuff is planned to get you addicted, and we need to label it what it is, because it doesn't have the same stigma because it's looked at as food. Even though me and you may see it as a toxic substance that our body shouldn't eat, the general population still has the image that fast food is food. Yeah. You know, processed foods is food.
Yeah.
And it doesn't lay you out psychoactive. It doesn't do that kind of stuff. So it's not
slow.
Looked at it. Yeah.
Slow progressive, yeah.
And then by that point, you're hooked.
You're hooked.
And it's hard to put it.
And when everybody's doing it too around you and it's normal, it's common, and everybody has back pain, everybody has type 2 diabetes, it's common, and they say, hey, 30 years old, I'm old, I'm getting old, I have back pain at 30 years old, and everyone of your friends are 30 years old with back pain. Okay, I'm getting old.
I know don't we gotta change those stories around, right? Instead of having a group of people having stories around the campfire about, oh, I just upped my dosage of metformin and I'm taking this and I'm about to go for my surgery. Can't we change that story to, hey, we're going out to the lake and doing some surfing. Yep. We're gonna go water skiing. We're going camping. I feel great, man. Let's go for a run. Let's go instead of, it's such a contrast if you get one group of people that have a story of stress and pain and emotion, and another group of people that they want to go for the rest of their lives. And we just got to try to get these people to walk over to our side of the fence. Because they just don't realize that there is something out there that can. Yeah. My mom was 73. It's never too late.
Exactly. You know? That gave me hope, brother. That gave me hope for my parents, brother. When you said that, they're 73. Man, my parents are in their early 60s. And I'm gonna need some more advice from you on how to thread the waters, because it's a touchy subject, right, of addiction and sugar reliance, right? But I'm glad that I had you on today. So it gave me a lot of hope, and I hope people listening are resonating with it, because these are really common problems that any household would have, right? And chances are, if you're listening, you're probably the only person in your family or friend group who's listening to a keto podcast, right? Because I certainly am the only one, right? And I'm hoping to help that one person out there. And so, Vernon, I want to thank you for coming on. Where can people find you, brother?
I'm at transparenthealthfitness.com. And my email is vernon@transparenthealthfitness.com. So, anybody want to reach out, any questions, happy to help. I wish everybody well on their journey.
Thanks, Vernon, for sharing your story, brother.
And thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate it, Lawrence.
Man, I enjoy it. I'm having a blast here, man, just listening to your story. And and your story about your parents. I think that you're probably, my goal is to have them reverse their diabetes, brother. And when you said that, it gave me hope, because I haven't met anybody, any coach anywhere that had claimed that they helped their parents reverse their diabetes. That's really rare. I've never heard that before. So I thank you so much for coming on, brother. I really commend you for doing that. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
Man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast today and never miss an episode.